I love seeing how things work, taking them apart, and sometimes even successfully putting them back together. Well, I have a new hobby. It's horography, or the study of watchmaking. Now, I'm just a newbie at this. Believe me, I am just starting to take things apart, clean them up, and try to get them back together to make them work. And so in that vein, I have a humble Timex today. This was my watch probably in the early 1990s, and it's well worn. The bezel doesn't spin anymore. I took the straps off just because there was so much gunk built up in here. I was just embarrassed to start working on this watch with the amount of gunk that was on here. But I've been practicing on a few inexpensive watches, and I'm starting to get my courage up. And if you have any interest in the hobby of watchmaking or of watch collecting, or even if you have old watches and you want to just get them out of the drawer, clean them up, get them running, and start enjoying them again, I encourage you and I welcome you along on my journey of learning and exploration. My goals for this video are to completely take this watch apart, clean it up, improve it where I can, accept it if I can't, get it all back together, and then hopefully we can get it running and I can start enjoying wearing this watch again. So without much ado, let's dig into it and let's take this thing apart. Before we jump into this, I have to admit that I'm a bit of a tool junkie, and watchmaking is a great hobby if you want to add to your specialized tool collection. One of the first purchases you'll see me using is this digital inspection microscope. I'll put my Amazon associate links to any watchmaking tools and products I recommend in the description if you want to learn more. This microscope is a middle to high-end digital model that cost under $200. I bought it because it records full HD video at 30 frames per second, and also because it tilts back, allowing you to work on something from above as you view it. So let's take a look at what's going on with this watch. And right away you can see there's some significant wear and tear. It looks like the paint is peeling off, and you can see that green cruddy stuff. It looks like corrosion. And it's flaking off a little bit. This is the push button that lights up the dial. This is an Indiglo watch, so the whole dial glows. In between the watch band posts, there's more corrosion and there's some kind of growth. It looks like a wart is sticking up out of the base metal that makes up the case. The winding crown, or time-setting crown, it seems to be working all right, and the hands turn just fine. Should also point out that that numbered bezel around the outside where we see the corrosion, that's also stuck. That's supposed to rotate counterclockwise freely. We see that the case is a base metal and the back is stainless steel. You can see some of my scars from attempts at opening the watch back, and you can really see how bent the button is right here. That keeps you from pressing in and lighting up that Indiglo face. When we get this watch apart, we'll be able to see what's grime and what's actual corrosion or damage to the metal. Let's take a look at the leather strap. It does seem to be genuine leather. It's in pretty good shape. There's more wear on this side, the side with the holes in it. Now, is that cracked? I'm not sure the leather's cracked. I think that just might be like salt from sweat and just an indentation where I was wearing it. Okay, finger cuts. I put the watch in here for scale so there's no confusion. As a watchmaker, you're not supposed to touch the watch bits and get your finger oils on the watch. So now that I'm all cotted up, I'm going in here like a real horographer or watchmaker. And being a horographer, you have to have your little throne that the watch will sit upon. This throne makes you feel like a watchmaker, and it makes the watch feel very special. So this is a pop-off back, and we have our first casualty. Yes, saved by the finger cuts. A little stab there. Nothing to worry about, folks. Can we get it? Okay, we have other tools.
Kind of chewing up this case.
There's that satisfying sound. So we got it open. And as a good horographer, you have to get used to using tweezers. Everything gets handled with tweezers. We have a gasket. I have a feeling that this will get replaced. Maybe that's why it was so hard to get the watch back off. To get the watch movement, to get it out, we need to remove that winding stem. And so you press in there, and there's a little button, and that releases the stem, which should now allow us to get the works out of the case. And there it is. We want to take off the hands. It's safer for the hands if we align all the hands with each other. And so either put the hands parallel with each other, either overlapping or opposite. I'm going to cover it with a little piece of plastic to protect the dial. We're going to use these little pry tools to pop the hands off. And we slide these two miniature salad prongs underneath there, and we serve up a nice helping of watch hands. And there it is. Did they both come off? It looks loose. So practicing our tweezer dexterity, we have our second hand. There goes the minute hand. And there it is. So now with the hands off, we could turn our attention to trying to remove the dial. I'm kind of curious what's behind this Indiglo dial. I want to see what makes it work. I have a feeling there's not going to be much to see. Well, did you see that? There was a screw on the back and it catapulted. Here it is, slow motion. Boing. We're going to count how many times I lose a part in this video. Now I found it, but using good technique is very important for not losing parts. So there was another screw holding the face on. Let's just back him out, or take him out entirely, and with that, the face comes off. Nothing too exciting, just a copper plate in the back. We'll take a look at more later on. With that taken care of, let's now turn our attention to getting this rotating bezel off of the watch case. Now I'm pretty sure this is just a friction fit. Come on.
Oh man, I'm really torquing on this now. Something's going to break. Something's going to bend. Something's going to break. Something's got to give.
Ow.
It's lifting. Oh! Oh! We got it. Let's see what we have here.
So there's like a spring-loaded ring that has these directional barbs, and then the underside of this bezel is ratcheted to keep it spinning in a single direction. And it really needs a cleanup. So here's a look at the case with the crystal. And you can see the that plunger is really crooked. That button to turn on the Indiglo. It just looks like that thing got whacked at some point. So I want to see if we can straighten that out. Here's a look at that button plunger underneath the microscope. And we need to get this out of the watch case. And it's held in place with this teeny tiny E-ring. It's a little tension clip. And can we just grab it with the tweezers and pop it off? Maybe? No. We need a tighter grip. Okay, so we pulled out some more heavy-duty tweezers. Let's see if we can get in here and get a grip on that little clip and just pull it off. I'm hoping this clip isn't a showstopper. I want to make sure that the opening to the clip is pointing the correct direction. Now, usually with these clips, there's little grooves that you can slide something under and pop them out, but there's really nowhere to gain leverage. So I'm just going to have to keep on trying to pull this thing out. Keeps on spinning. All right, there you can see the back of it. Can we push it off? I just feel like I'm going to slip and plunge my tweezers into the inside of the crystal, and that would kind of stink. One of the fun/frustrating parts of watchmaking is you have the same mechanical challenges as you would, say, working on a car, but everything's just so small. Everything is micro-miniaturized, so it taxes your coordination, it taxes your vision. Now I'm just trying to brute strength this thing out with small tweezers. So this is the tip of my automotive gasket removal tool, and it's just comically large when it comes to trying to pop this out. I mean, if this was on a car, then popping out an E-ring would be no problem with this tool. Try a different direction. What do you think? Better look this way? Can we leverage against the case? Oh! It's off. I'm not sure where it is, but it's off. Oh, and look. All right, so there are cutouts. Okay, don't send it flying. So there we go. With the clip out, we finally have access to the button pusher, so we can take a look at its condition. We can assess that bend, see if it's fixable, and oh, yuck, that thing's dirty. We're going to clean it up. Meanwhile, this tool is called either a watch back press, or it can be used to set crystals in a watch. It's basically a press. It has a lever, it has a bunch of nylon or plastic dies, and you pick the die to match your needs. In this case, we're going to be popping out the crystal, so I want a top die that's smaller than a crystal, and I want a bottom die that's just big enough to hold the case and allow the crystal to pass through. Now, I've never used one of these before, but I know it's important to protect the crystal, so we'll use a piece of plastic.
It either worked or it broke. It was quite the little snap.
Well, it seems I got more than I bargained for. See that brass collet down at the bottom? It hit the crystal and made a nasty ring. Ouch! This is what it looks like on the microscope. This is what it looks like live and in person. Maybe it'll buff out. Live and learn. That's why I'm practicing on a Timex. Okay, let's pay some attention to this case. I'm using a wooden stick just to get as much muck off the case as I can. Cleaning it up gives you a good idea of the condition it's in, so you can see if something's broken. There's a hole here. I'm not quite sure what it does, but I'm sure I'll figure it out later. Now we're going to use something called a pin vise so we can get a better grip on this button pusher. Now as we clean off the muck, we can sort of see where the bend is, and it's right on the narrowest part of the pusher. I'm a little bit concerned I don't want to snap it, because then this repair is finito. That means finished in watchmaker speak. Yeah, you can see the bend is right there at the narrow point where that grommet is. So very, very gently, I'm just going to use fingertip pressure over and over, slightly, easy. See if we can massage it back into place. I'm trying to transmit my body heat here into the metal so I don't snap it. And we got it pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So let's get everything cleaned up. We're going to put all the small parts into this stainless steel diving bell before we plunge it into the ultrasonic cleaner. Stay safe, my little friends. Now, cows can swim, right? So I'm going to try ultrasonic cleaning this leather strap. So everything goes into the cleaner. I'm using a solution of warm tap water with 1 drop of dishwashing soap. And we're going to let that vibrate. I ran a couple of 3-minute cycles. Then we took it out, give it a little drain, and now we're going to give it a rinse using distilled water. That should get any soap off of it. Now, while that is over there rinsing and washing, I want to introduce Polywatch. This stuff is a miracle. This is an abrasive cleanser that, when rubbed on an acrylic crystal, will remove scratches. And I do have that big scratch right in the middle of this crystal to serve as a baseline. So here's how it works. You put on some Polywatch. You rub it. You put on some more Polywatch. You rub it some more. You know it's starting to work when you're getting cramps in your hand and in your arm, and that's when you want to buff it with a nice clean microfiber cloth and take a look at your progress. That's coming along, but I can still see that big old ding in the front. So that means more Polywatch. I was getting experimental here, so I thought I would use a gloved fingertip, see if I can feel the scratch and see if I can massage it in just the right pattern. It seemed to do okay. More Polywatch, and this time we went back to the cloth. It has come a long way. Look at that. You could still see it, but it's so much better. Let's compare it on the microscope. I'll bring in the old before we did the Polywatch on the right, and there's definitely a difference. Now, you could see it on the left, but here's what's interesting. I have the lighting set to highlight that scratch. As soon as you move the lights, it virtually disappears. So I think I'm going to call this a win and move on to the next step. With all of the parts out and drying, now we could take a look at, after the cleaning, some of the body parts. Now you could see on this rotating bezel, remember all that green gunk that was on here? It's gone. And I see that there's some marks here. I don't know what's dirt, so I'm just going to poke at it with that stick. So some was dirt and others look like scuffs. I'm not going to worry too much. I'm going to try a little bit of rubbing alcohol. I don't want to damage the numbers and remove the print. And since this is a watch that I know is pretty durable and is not highly valuable, I could be a little bit aggressive about how I choose to touch this up. I want to make it look good, but I want to make it feel good. I don't want any rough edges or sharp corners, and speaking of sharp corners, look at this. There's a chunk in the top of this bezel that's sharp enough to take shavings out of this wooden stick. So I have a diamond file, and I'm going to see if I could knock this down. And very minimally, I don't want to make a big mess, but if I could knock this down and get rid of that sharp burr, I think that's a win. I wouldn't do this on a gold watch or even a good watch, but this is all about me getting a feel for the different tools, and in this case, my diamond file, which absolutely looks gigantic, seems to be doing a really good job, and it feels good too. So I'm just doing the touch test and making sure that this bezel is smooth all the way around. And now I'll flip it over, and we're going to take to making sure that this is really well cleaned. Now, it went through the ultrasonic cleaner, but there's still muck in these ratcheting teeth and all around the inner rim. So it doesn't hurt to do some more mechanical cleaning. I wanted to see how much the ultrasonic cleaner could clean off first. So we're going to poke at it with a stick and brush at it and then poke at it again with a stick. If the tip of the stick looks wet, that's because it is. I've been dipping it in isopropyl alcohol, which seems to be getting some of this baked-on muck off of the ratcheting teeth. Okay, remember I said there was a wart or something sticking out of the base metal case? Well, here it is, and it was no match for the diamond file. I'm not sure what caused it. There's an indexing hole above it. I thought maybe water got in and stayed there and swelled it from the inside, but it was unattractive, and I just wanted to try touching up this case. Again, I want everything to be smooth to the touch, and that's a big part of this, and that's why I'm practicing on an inexpensive watch. I want to see how these tools react with the metal. I don't have a lot of watchmaking skills yet, but I do have car skills and auto body skills, and what I'm doing here is wet sanding. I have a piece of 1500 grit wet or dry sandpaper. I'm using Windex as a lubricant, and we're going to work over the entire case. I'm going to start with 1500 grit, and then I eventually move to 2000 grit. And you can see the scratches are coming out. It's actually shining it up kind of nice too. That's a better look at that wart that we filed down. Making our way all around the case of the watch. It's starting to look better. We have some nicks that are on the side of the watch body. And again, I want to see if I can get these things smooth so when you're touching the watch, everything feels nice and slick. Smooth to the touch. It might not be beautiful, but it's going to be smooth. Okay, here's a look at the quartz movement, and I am blowing it off, and there's a piece of dust, so we blow it, and I blew away the washer. Well, I found the washer, and I put it back, and I also put back the dust, so I have a second opportunity to try blowing off the dust without blowing off the washer. Success. While we're taking a closer look at the hour wheel, there's the minute shaft, and there's where the second hand mounts. If we look at the back of the movement, the M643-3 is either the movement model or the watch model. The thing that looks like a white hot tub is where the battery goes. The thing that says push is the hole that you press in to take out the stem. There, the silver thing is the quartz crystal that regulates the watch. The copper coil concentrates the battery's energy to move a stepping motor, which in turn moves the gears, which moves the hands. So with the dial put back on, now we're going to replace the hands. You get it in place and then press it down with that pressing tool. Make sure that it's engaged. Now we place on the minute hand. There's the hand pressing tool again. And last, you have to place the second hand. It's like a game of skill. It gets harder and harder with each hand that you place because the little mounting point gets smaller. It looks pretty good. Now you want to rotate the hands to make sure that they don't hit each other. Excellent. After wet sanding the case, I decided I wanted something on it to make it smooth and give it some protection.
Enriches, beautifies, and protects wood, metal, leather, and plastics.
Well, I mentioned that my orientation comes from working on cars, so I thought I would give some of this Johnson paste wax a try and see if it would add some luster, smooth out the look of the finish, and provide some, I don't know, protection, hand feel to the case itself.
Oh, that feels fantastic.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with how this came out. With the case looking good, let's turn our attention to the strap. Now, sometimes I get called frugal. We're going to see if we can recycle this strap. It's really not in bad shape. I mean, it's got some like sweat marks, but I think we can make it look nice. Let's give it a try. This is my shoe shine kit, probably from the 1980s. And I was wearing suits and working in a corporation, and shiny shoes were very important. So I had this classic shoe shine kit. And I think it's like a boar's hair brush to pick up the polish. And then maybe a horsehair brush to buff it. Well, newsflash, my polish is ancient. Do you see it just crumbling and falling apart? The theory is if you rub it on quick enough, it will liquefy the polish and it will soak in to the leather that you're treating. And it works, but I'm making a huge mess because my polish is ancient. We're going to put down some fresh paper and let's buff this with the buffing brush.
It gives a beautiful sheen to whatever you're polishing.
This might not be terribly exciting video, but wait till you see how great this comes out.
Okay. Well, it's looking a lot better.
Hey, do you remember this?
Leather.
Since I'm already wearing my mad scientist hat, I thought I would try some of the Johnson paste wax on this leather strap for extra protection. I'm using an old toothbrush. Yes, it's an old toothbrush. After letting the wax set up, we are going to buff it. And then I'm going to use the little stem on this strap to poke out the little strap boogers that were in the holes. And voila! I think it came out great. All right, back to the crystal. I got to tell you, I thought it was okay. It's still bothering me. So if it doesn't work by hand, we're going to try some power tools. I don't know if this is a good idea. What I do know is when I turn it on, it's going to spray. So I'm spraying it into my hand. Yep. Rooster tail. So I'm just going to work this felt buffer wheel on the Dremel a little bit and see if we can get out more of that scratch. A little bit more Polywatch. Now I used the lowest speed and it really did reduce the scratch. I do think it heated up the crystal a little bit because I was able to see a little bit of optical impurity. It just got a little bit wavy. So I'd probably not recommend using the Dremel. It's just too high speed. To get the crystal back in the case, I'm going to use a new tool called a crystal lifter. Check it out. We'll do an unboxing.
The idea behind a crystal lifter or crystal dropper is that it takes the crystal and compresses it inward, making the rim a smaller diameter, so you can then pop it into the case, then release the lifter, and the acrylic crystal will expand back to fill the case. So let's do an unboxing and let's see if this thing really works. There we go. This is it. There's another part here too. That's the little base, and that's what we pick up the crystal from. Okay, so here's the gist. You unscrew this, and the little claws open. See the claws opening? And so you want to open it until it's the right diameter as the crystal. We're going to set the crystal here. This little guide raises the crystal up just enough so you can set the grabber on there, tighten down, pick it up, and then install it in the watch case. So it sounds simple. Let's give this a try. I have to tell you, this was a very inexpensive tool. And if this does the trick, well, then I am thrilled. So we want to place this with the flange down.
While the crystal lifter didn't come with instructions, there's enough YouTube videos out there that shows you exactly how the tool works. And for other people, it worked fantastic. I had a little bit of difficulty getting it adjusted and getting a really good grip on the crystal. And, well, I'll show you what happened. I'll let you be the judge.
So now we have the crystal gripped right above that rim. And let's see if we can get it to snap in. It's not going yet, so we're gonna tighten down just a little bit more. Yeah, a pretty good tighten on there. I think I'm grabbing the crystal too far down, and the teeth are blocking it from going in. Yeah, you see that tooth right there? Right there, near the camera. Him. He's all the way down against the bottom, and so I won't be able to get it in to the case because I need some depth. So we're going to release the crystal and we're going to try again.
At this point, I'm starting to question the difference between the $15 version of this tool and the $100 version.
Okay, looks like a good grab. Let's tension it a little bit. And send it flying across the room.
So my cheap crystal lifter will be sent back, and that means I get to buy another tool, a watch press. But this one, unlike the previous lever-based ones, this one has a hand screw. So I expect there will be much more control. It's much better built, and let's take a look at it. So as you can see, it has a hand screw. It moves quickly at first, and then once it tightens down, it has a bunch of fine threads to let you control the amount of torque. It comes with a big assortment of these different plastic dies. And we're going to try a different method here. I'm going to try to place a small die on the bottom and a big die on top and actually bend the crystal just enough so I could lift the case into place. It'll make more sense when you see me rig it all up. So I want a die that touches the edges of the crystal. So now the idea is if we press down on the edges and press up in the center, it should make the diameter of the crystal slightly smaller, just enough that we can ease it into the case. I have a piece of plastic on it to protect the surface. And I am applying some torque to the crystal. It feels a little bit more forgiving, but I think I need a smaller die on the bottom. So this is the smallest one I have. Will it work? Everything's nice and centered. And we're just using fingertip pressure on that crank. I don't want to break it. 3 little tiny turns at a time. Will it go in? Something happened.
Oh no! Oh no, what has just happened? The index has fallen through. Does that mean the crystal's in place? Let's unscrew it and see what's going on here. What have we done? Well, here's what we've done. We've broken the crystal? What in tarnations is that? Yes, I believe it's a crack in the crystal. But unbelievably, I think the crystal's actually set in place. And then somehow we managed to pop the index out from the back. All right, this is a learning moment.
Yes, I'm learning how not to use the equipment. Here's a closer look at that crack. I figured we'll just move on. Let's put the index ring back in place if we can. Now it's plastic, so it's kind of flexible. Let me see if I could just get it in by hand.
Can we just kind of work it in there? Is it flexible enough? Mikey, don't break it. Oh! Oh, that actually felt like it went in, but I see that it's not aligned correctly. Can we spin it? Oh, almost. There it is! All right. So the bezel's in place, and it really highlights that nasty crack in the crystal. But you know what? Hey, this is my learning watch.
Have I mentioned that this is my learning watch? I figured I'd learn by looking at that crack under the microscope. Here it is from the back. You know, it looks kind of weird. Wait a minute. Is that a crack? Or is that some kind of gasket or adhesive? Let me see if I get the ring out. I want to take a closer look at that. Now, this wooden stick isn't really working, so I have a very fine pair of needle nose tweezers. I just need to be very careful. I don't want to scratch anything. Oh, darn it! What just happened? I bent my tweezers. And look at this. I put a nasty scratch right on the inside of the crystal. Oh, brother. Well, that gives me another opportunity to use my crystal press again. We're going to take out the crystal. And we're going to protect the crystal better this time. So with the right dies in place,
Pop!
we could just pop out that
It was
crystal.
a very definitive pop. I hope it's in one piece. And voila. How are we doing here? So here's the question. Is the crystal broken? No, the crystal's fine. I still have that scratch that I put in there. So what was that little gooey thing?
Well, there it is. It looked like a rubber band or a gasket. And that's exactly what it was. There was a gasket behind the crystal, and through the power of editing, we now have the crystal back in place with the index properly indexed behind it. We're going to wipe off all our fingerprints, and we're going to move forward with reassembling this watch. I took off the hour wheel and I cleaned it, so let's get that back in place. A closer look at the movement. There's our button pusher, nice and cleaned up, almost straight. And there's that little E-clip. I hope it goes on easier than it came off. My plan here is just to hold the clip with tweezers and try to snap it into place with a screwdriver without plunging my screwdriver into the back of the crystal and making another scratch. I should add that I was able to polywatch out the scratch on the inside of the crystal before I put the crystal back in the watch body. So this is a watch oiler. It's just a tiny, teeny little metal paddle, and we're going to use it to apply lubricant to the places that need it. This is a white lithium grease, and my first order of business is I want to get that ratchet really smooth. I just love the feeling of those ratchets. It's like before they had fidget spinners, watches had rotating ratcheting bezels. So that's the bezel spring. And the bezel spring settles into that little hole that we saw on the body that was right above that wart that we filed off. I don't know if there's a connection, but the purpose of that hole is to index the bezel spring. Wiping it off and blowing it off. Placing the bezel in place. There was an extra place in that sentence. You could use it wherever you like. Can we push it on just with finger strength? No. That's okay. We have a tool for that.
There we go.
I am so excited that this watch is coming back together and things are finally shaping up. Everything's going my way.
Very nice. And it turns in that direction very freely. It's got a nice, satisfying click to it. Oh, I like that click. All right.
Next step, let's remove the stem so we can put the movement back into the case. Easy.
Oh no. Oh no. What have we done?
What we've done is somehow we pushed the dial back off of the movement. We've dislocated the hands. No, the hour gear is still attached to the back of the dial. Oh, brother. Did I mention this is a learning experience? So let's take off the hands. And let's reassemble the parts. At this point, I'm just saying, never mind finger cots. Let's just get this thing back together. It's a Timex. Did I mention it's a learning watch? We'll properly attach the dial, clean it off, and let's get the hands back in place. Now I'm starting with the hour and the minute hand aligned to 12. So we know that when the hands turn, they always align properly as each hour is passed. Let's get the second hand in place. Maybe easier said than done. What? Why did that fly over there? All right, that must have been a goof. Try again. What's going on? Actually, I think what's going on is that plastic bag that's under my hand is electrically charged. It's either using the force or it's static electricity that's throwing that very light second hand away. Well, here we go. We have the movement back into the case, and now the all-important inserting of the battery to see if it works. And look at that. It's a beautiful day. Now the Indiglo is working, but it's not as bright as I once remember it. Let's measure the back for the rubber gasket before closing up the watch. 33 millimeters. I don't have one of those. I'll have to order one, but let's close up the watch anyway. I'll put it in tomorrow or whenever I get it.
There we go.
And with that, the watch is mostly back together. And looking great. I'm feeling pretty good here. Let's put the band on.
Okay, so you and I both know what that crystal's been through. But look at that. It just looks brand new right now. So here's the fun part. Does it feel like an old friend? So that was a very long journey, but I got my 1980s Timex cleaned up and working again. Okay, the strap came out just fine. It's got a little bit of wear, but the color is good. The crystal came a long way. We were able to clean up the winder and that Indiglo push button. The case came out great. All in all, I'm really, really happy. I learned a lot through the mistakes I made. They were learning experiences, and it was kind of no risk because this is an inexpensive watch. But it makes me much more bold to move on to my next project. So I think we're getting closer to redoing a mechanical watch. So this is Mike. Thank you for staying the course with me on this extended learning project.